yeah. But at the same time, let's look at HashiCorp, for example.
Yes.
So how I think about the current situation is that there was a company which was really, really successful with open source. It was one of the most successful open source companies out there, and a lot of people started using it, and there was a huge healthy community around their projects. And then they had a growth. I'm guessing that this is what happened. HashiCorp had investors on board, and they came up with a growth trajectory which couldn't be met with open source and the monetization, available monetization strategies around them. And so they adopted BSL, which is not an open source license. And in the article, they claim that open source actually needs some kind of an update in terms of what the license allows and how monetization looks like. Because what? Because your growth trajectory was too steep for open source, and now open source is to blame. This is what is happening here. That open source as a software license you use to publish software is not good enough for your business plan, and therefore you need to change open source. No, I mean, you need to change either your projections, your ambitions in terms of growth, or look elsewhere. But it was not open source you had a problem with in the first place, and this is what was going on with MongoDB as well, and we are seeing it over and over again, where somehow a very steeply forecasted growth trajectory is something which open source can deliver to you as a company, and therefore they try to redefine the exact vehicle which actually took them to where they are in the first place. And the only problem they are having is that it no longer serves their needs in terms of growth. So they come up with BSL, and they come up with SSPL and all these licenses, which, if they would have a choice, of course, it would be called an open source license. It was attempted with SSPL. It's attempted with BSL as well. I think MariaDB called it open source, or the same thing as open source. But in reality, these licenses, contrary to AGPL and all the open source licenses we are having discussions about, these licenses are not they did not come up with them with the community in mind. They came up with them with fixing their business models in mind, and I think that's a very big difference.
Yeah, it's a good point, because when you look at like an SSPL or a BSL, it is exclusionary. And Avi, you like to point out the AGPL. AGPL is not exclusionary.
It's restrictive, though.
It's restrictive only based on the people who are using it as their license or deploying it. Because what it's saying is, if it's connected to the network, then you should also open source those network protocols.
Right, but that is a restriction in how you can use it, and so I think
but hold on, let me finish my thought.
Yeah.
You're getting ahead of my thought here.
Okay.
My thought in my comment here is, when you look at an SSPL or a BSL, it exclusively says these people cannot use it, or you cannot use it for these types of things.
Yeah.
The AGPL doesn't say that. The AGPL basically says we want everything to be open source. And you might say, as a company, I don't want my proprietary stuff open source, so then you would choose not to use it.
Right.
But it's a nuance where one is we're protecting ourselves from these other people, and then the other one is we want everybody who uses this to use open source.
I mean, you could rephrase that same thing to say we're protecting ourselves from people who would put this in proprietary software.
But it's still it's the difference between perpetuating open source versus preventing people from using your things in a more discriminatory way.
I.e., not open source.
Yeah, which
So it's
is
the
what
same thing.
SSPL and BSL are.
That's the same thing.
By the way, Peter, if you didn't know, Avi and I are on a little bit of a
Long
different, you know,
Yeah, I'm starting to feel that there is a full-blown licensing war going on in the podcast episode, but
Yeah, we keep it interesting here that way.
AGPL still complies with the open source definition, right? I mean, at least we can say that. This is what Matt is saying, that it's not going to exclude any sort of use case or user. And these other licenses like BSL or SSPL, they don't comply with this definition, and therefore they are not open source. Our whole point at FerretDB, or my personal opinion, or maybe both, is that you are free to say that open source is not good for you. You are free to publish your software with a proprietary license. You are free to do whatever you need to do as a company to achieve your goals. Just try not to reach back and redefine things according to your own needs, according to what you want to see as an individual or as a business. It's open source, and the open source definition which made it possible for HashiCorp or MongoDB to actually get where they are right now. So is it really fair as a request to just leave this intact and leave people alone with their choices and what they think about open source, rather than trying to show down something beneficial to their business on other people's throats?
fair enough.
Do you feel like there's a meaningful difference between the move that HashiCorp took and the move that MongoDB took? Do you see those as kind of, I don't know, like equally bad for communities or equally bad for ecosystems? Like, if there is a difference, what do you see those as being?
Well, I think, Matt, you made a good point with the difference between the communities. So MongoDB and HashiCorp's projects are not even comparable as to the number of contributors or the community around them, or actually the number of companies who are affected by HashiCorp's decision. I think HashiCorp is a lot worse in terms of the effect on the community. At the same time, what MongoDB... So I'm not sure if HashiCorp made any attempt to redefine open source. I don't think they did.
I would claim they didn't.
Yeah, they had some comments where they said, yeah, open source, I mean, we may need to think about the future of open source or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it was not like, hey, there is this BSL license, it's as good as open source, let's call it open source, let's call this a day. You are not affected, why do you even care? I mean, this is what MongoDB did. And I think for the broader community, what MongoDB did is, I guess if I would need to compare the two, what MongoDB did is bad for the broader community and open source itself, because they wanted to redefine open source, and even to this day, many people think that SSPL is open source. I'm dealing with that every day. HashiCorp, on the other hand, I think that's bad for their own communities or the open source communities around the company itself. But when it comes to the broader open source community, I don't think it had a lot of effect.